Hello everyone. I'm recording this video for anyone who is new to web development and they are browsing websites and maybe now they are excited to, create their own personal website or about their small business or they just wanted to get started with absolute basics and they don't have like prior experience with programming and stuff. Like I have been approached few times. Uh, People ask me like how they can get started and this stuff all seems like all technical, like you need to know many things, you need to have many tools or things like that. And believe me, it's not like that. You can just start with the basic browser from Safari, Firefox, what have you. So, some good code editor. For beginner level you can choose Microsoft Studio, like the community edition, that is free. It's called Visual Studio Code. Or if you have anything else installed, like Notepad++, what have you, just like roll with it. So what's HTML and CSS? Like why you need to learn it? Like what's their scope? Like if you invest your time in it. So HTML, like some people debate it's a programming language or not, but its name stands for, a hypertext markup language. So there is a language in the name. This is the most written programming language out there. Um, and same goes with CSS and JavaScript because there are million of or billion of websites right now, and this number will keep growing. Yeah, and to make a website, you need to have like the basic or absolute minimum thing that is required is HTML. You might have some ugly website that is like plain basic, that doesn't have any JavaScript, doesn't have any kind of styling or CSS, but it must have HTML. Yeah. So that's why HTML is the most written programming language. Examples that I use will be hosted on GitHub. So this is the agenda that we will cover. Yeah. So the most important thing when you are working with websites is this, like is one implementation or one model we call request response method or request response model basically. What you do is in your laptop or in your browser, you type something like facebook.com or google.com, and request goes to some server that belongs to facebook.com or google.com. They see like what page you are requesting. Are you requesting some login page, some sign up page, or your profile page, whatever resource you are requesting, they send you over the response. That response includes something that is visible to you and some few things that are hidden to you, basically. Let's call them metadata or something. Hidden things does include like HTTP version protocol. Yeah, like here it's written 1.1, and the status code, like if your request is successful not or not, and the web server serves it like successfully or not. With this status code 200 means okay, like yeah, everything is okay, everything works, and then the page will be displayed on in your browser. Yeah. And also, along with the web page, your server might send you some cookies that might store some basic level information about you. Now, for each web page or each website, if we only talking about front end, we have like three basic things going on, and you can label them like HTML. You can call HTML your data. So all that information that you are presenting to your user is actually data that you user is looking for. It's actually the content, and you write content using HTML. Yeah. Now, how they look like, this comes under the label of styling or presentation. Like how my logo would be like, what size is centrally aligned or left aligned or right aligned, what will be the width of it, what will be the height of it. If I'm using text, like what font family I will be using, what's the font size, is it bold or not. So all these presentation aspects, CSS is handling it. So This is your presentation layer. And for behavior, like when you click on something, like if you are filling out a login form and you type your email address, but there is no @ symbol in it, and when you click on the login button, before sending all this data to server and then server telling you your email address is invalid, we can run JavaScript to check if your the data you are input, the data you type is actually valid or not. Like if you type email addresses, are they valid? If you're typing phone number, if they are valid, or if you are filling out a form and there are four required fields that you need to fill and you only fill out three of them, then you cannot submit a form until you click on the until you fill out the fourth required field. So all these kind of behaviors, slideshows, forms validation, uh, some UI widgets, like when you are having multiple steps, like step one of a sign up process, step two, step three, or your shopping cart and things like that that are interactive where you can add and remove element. They can be handled in JavaScript. So this is what you see on screen now. This is the absolute minimum. Actually, I can delete line number 3 as well. Like our web page do not have an empty title. I can just have uh, like 4 or 5 lines of code, and we will have a blank web page, a blank website. That is our website. Nothing on it. Like less is more, yeah. So there you go. This is the absolute minimum that is required to make a web page that will be rendered by your browser of choice, like Safari or Chrome or whatever you have. These things that are in angle brackets, like this arrow-like shape, yeah. If you notice, like we start with HTML, we are telling browser like, okay, whatever it comes now is HTML, and so we just say HTML. This thing called element, and many people say it's HTML tags or web page tags or web development tags. Basically, most famous term is HTML tags. But as per documentation or standards, these are actually elements. Yeah. So this is our first element, and this is the opening of element. Like we are opening an element called HTML. HTML contains everything inside. Yeah, everything about your web page, every other code will go inside HTML. This is the opening, and this is the closing. So most of the elements, um, when you gonna use them, you will open them and you will close them. If you can see, I'm opening HTML element here, I'm closing it here. Inside the HTML element, in line number 2, I'm opening a head element and then I'm closing it. Inside head, we have a title element. I'm opening the title element, I'm closing the title element. So for many elements, you will have a opening set and then the closing set. Yeah. Or opening part of it and then closing part of it. There are few exceptional cases where we call them self-closing, where you do not need to write this closing element or closing pair separately. You can just put this forward slash here and it will be still valid. Example of it, image tag. When we will, or image element, see, I'm used to the tag also. So when we will talking about image element, you will see like it's self-closing element. So this is the basics of your web page, and now you are a certified web developer. Like go update your CV. Now something about tags or elements. I just Googled today and to find out how many of them are out there. It doesn't matter like how many elements are out there. You do not need to remember them. What you need to remember like their types or their family, like how you classify them. Yeah, and which one are the most important elements or tags that you should use and when to use them. One big mistake that many of us made, that putting everything into a div tag. We overuse it, div tag. If you are like making a CV for our browser, like we are implementing our CV as a web page or our as a website, what we do like Instead of putting our name that is actually heading, like if we are making our CV in Microsoft Word, we will use proper things for proper content. Like for our name, we might use H1 or heading one because it's the most important thing out there. Yeah. Then for the subsection of our CV, education, experience, and projects, we will use subheadings, maybe heading level 2. And for list of project, we will, as the name implied, list. We will use proper listing, bullet list or number list, things like that. So all these concepts actually translate into HTML. There are corresponding elements or tags for each of these things. But what we did, we just wrap everything into a div, style it, and there you go. This works in browser because browsers are very forgiving, but there are downsides of it. On the screen, you see there is a label or there is a heading called bad tags. Why I'm calling them bad? This was the second mistake we made. First was wrapping everything into a div element, despite it's a heading, despite it's a nested, it's a list or not. We were just wrapping into a div element. Second one was using these tags or these elements that are actually controlling the presentation. Like take example of this B tag or B element. If I'm wrapping USA or UK in this B tag, it will make it bold. The UK or USA name, this country name will be bold. Okay, I published 1,000 pages in my website where the country name is bold, and I'm using this tag. What if I don't want it bold in future, or my boss comes to me and say, okay, everywhere where this country, any country is mentioned, we do not want to show it as a bold text. Now I have to go and remove this B tag or B element from my code from 1,000 pages or 2,000 source code files. So this was bad. Your presentation might change in future. Yeah. And your presentation try should not be into your content. Like these HTML elements should like be there to properly encapsulate your content. Like list should be inside list, headings should be inside headings, section should inside the section tag or element. Your main content should be an article element that comes in HTML5 or you know presentation aspects should be handled in CSS. So what's the benefit of it? Like in future, if I want to like say all the country names should be capitalized or they will be all caps and their color would be for some reason purple, they will be underlined, they will have they will be rendered as bold and their font size will be, let's say, 30 pixel. I can go and make this change into my CSS file and everywhere it will be reflected. I do not need to go to 2000 uh, source code file and make those changes everywhere for each country that is mentioned. Yeah. So try to avoid these elements that are controlling presentation because this aspect should be handled in CSS. Doc types. So when we were moving from from table based things, this doc type was the first line in many websites source code. Yeah, they instruct browser what kind of rule set to use and render the page according to those rules. Yeah, if you can notice, like here I'm talking, use the XHTML strict version, XHTML version 1 with strict mode. Here I'm saying if my doc type contains like very first line of in my website, if it says XHTML1 using this doc type, XHTML1 with transitional, browser will know, okay, this is more relaxed mode and this one is more strict mode. Yeah. So browser will render page accordingly based on what mode you choose. Nowadays, HTML is like HTML5 is popular. If you open apple.com, if you open microsoft.com, you would see they are not using this kind of doc type. Now HTML5 doc type is much simpler, basically. Let me show you an example. This is the HTML5 doc type that is much simpler, much smaller to write instead of that crazy thing going on. So let me show you Apple one again. You click on inspect element. You see on Apple doc type HTML5. The smaller version is going on. This is for HTML5. So latest website by big giants already using HTML5. So I think it's a good bet that you can also like adopt to HTML5 and just ignore the previous things for now until your clients really want or your company really wants you to do it. So this webmerge tools we talked about earlier, like what kind of tools you need to on your PC, on your Mac, on your Linux machine, whatever you have. Essentially, what you can do, you must have a browser because you need to test your web page, yeah. And each operating systems, Mac, Windows, or Linux, at least have some default browser in it. Like for Windows, it's Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge. For Mac, it's Safari, and for some Linux distribution, it will be Firefox or Chrome. So browser part is kind of covered. If you want some other browser, you can always go and install it. Text editor. Now, for text editor, what you can do, Visual Studio Code. For my Mac is saying like download Mac Universal stable build. I already have it installed, so I'm not gonna go and install it right now. This is my Visual Studio Code with themes and extension installed. And this is the repo that I mentioned in my slide from already published on GitHub. You see, I'm using doc HTML5, HTML5 doc type here. And these code samples we will like explore later on one by one. Okay, so minimum tool set you need Visual Studio Code or some other text editor browser. Probably your OS already have it. And for when you're making a website, you need to make sure, or your web page, you need to make sure it works on every popular browser out there. Semantics means have a proper meaning of your web page. Do not encapsulate everything into a div or everything into a h1 or everything into a p tag or whatever is your favorite element. Just do not overuse it. Think about it like if it's making sense to use it, like based on the content that is in front of you. So as I said, like in my mind, it was like million elements out there, but today I googled there are like 300 to 400 according to Mozilla documentation. It doesn't matter how many are exactly out there. You might end up using less than 30, I believe. At least they will cover the huge use cases. But instead of like mastering the number of elements or remembering 40 or 50 and memorize them, you should learn about their families or their base class, like their base type basically. Yeah. By base type, I mean these three things that are listed here. Every element can you can classify it as either inline element or a block level element or combination of these two inline block element. So this inline block element is like hybrid of these two. It contains properties of both of them. And then you have attributes. Elements actually have attributes. You might see in your code or on website. Like if I show you again, app. Let me open Apple and bring it over here. Click inspect element again. So you see in the different browser, it opens up the bottom section this time. So as we discussed before, you see this HTML is actually HTML element. Yeah, this thing inside the bracket, like inside the angle bracket that is closing here. This orange like things and on your screen on your OS, this color might be different. So these things XMLNS, XML language, prefix, class, data layout, these are called attributes. Elements have attribute. Most common attributes are like this: class. Body element has this attribute called class, and inside here you put different kind of CSS classes you have. You do not need to worry about what are CSS classes for now. You just need to know like this is an attribute. Another attribute that is very famous is called ID. You see this ID attribute. So for beginners, you will be dealing with two attributes mostly: ID and class. Class is here, ID is here. Difference between these two is ID, like the name implies, is unique. No two elements can have same ID. Classes can be repeatable. So validation, you need to know like you are writing valid HTML and valid CSS. Browsers also validate your HTML and CSS. Search engines rank all those websites that are having valid HTML and CSS higher on the search results. There are some extension out there for browsers that is that validate your HTML and CSS and assign you the score based on that. Higher the score, higher the chances getting listed on the search results. By validation means, as we mentioned, based on the doc type, what kind of rule set you are instructing browser. So telling browser like what rule set to pick and actually writing code based on those rule set is two different things. I might tell browser to use strict mode and still writing code that is violating the principles of that rule set. Browser will work. It will show you a web page. So inline elements. This is the first type of elements that we mentioned in previous slides. Yeah. Inline elements are all those elements that can sit next to each other, just like these keyboards buttons or keys AASD. They are they are in a same row, sitting next to each other. Yeah. Same goes with the QWER. Like this is not the complete keyboard. I just presented this to give you an idea about inline. As name implies, they can sit next to each other in a line, in a row. There are other additional properties of inline elements. Inline elements take the width or size based on their content, like whatever content is inside of inline element, it will take a width of it. Yeah. Now what we can do, can open JS data. So this is a website where you can just type a little bit code without creating a file into your system and then launching it or opening it with the browser and then see it like what's happening in the output. Here, if I write a p tag, let's say hello, and I click on the run button, you see I have a hello there. Yeah. So since we are talking about inline elements, let's see what elements can we have. So one basic example can be uh, strong element where I say hello and then I say world. I run it again. You see hello is kind of bold, and then the world is normal text basically. It's not wrapped into an element. But if I wrap it into an EM tag or element, So now we have a two elements, hello and world. They're both sitting next to each other. Um, let's use some other type element. You, you see now word becomes underlined. So these two elements are sitting next to each other in a single row. And if I click on one of them, vector element, you see that hello thing is wrapped into a strong element here, and world is a strong world is wrapped into the u element. What you can do, you can click on the strong one. You see it's the row becomes highlighted, and inside your style type, you do not need to get it. I'm just wanted to show you about the width property of inline elements. Like what I meant, like what if an element is belongs to an to inline element class or inline element type or inline element group, it follows certain rule set. One rule set is its width. And to show you how much width it's taking, I'm writing a little bit CSS that I know you probably don't know it. So do not need to worry about it for now. I just make a border around it so you know like exactly the width of hello world. So you see it's edge to edge. It's just like not giving any kind of space. So this is the width of it. One other trick is if I put my cursor over the element, you see it's telling me the strong element is taking 34.89 pixel. Yeah, the bubble was showing up there. This one, the pop-up bubble under the hello world that's saying strong, 34.89 with 20 height, 20.5 height. Same is with the word. It's taking the 37. I can also give it a style just to show you. If I increase this side hello from somewhere, dot 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 dot, and run it again. Now you see inspect. Now the total width increase is 178.5. So inline elements widths calculate based on the content that is wrapped inside them. Yeah, that's how their width is getting calculated. Imagine I come to this world element that is actually a U element. So world is wrapped into the U element that is making it underline. I say, okay, I want to control your width and give me width of 400 pixel. So as you can see, this property doesn't take effect because it's an inline element. We will see other ways around it, but for now, this is the thing. We will touch all these element types inline, block, and inline block once we reach to the CSS section of it, because there it will make more sense and you can play around. Based why CSS is powerful? CSS is powerful because without CSS, browser know okay this certain element, div, strong, u, whatever you have belongs to some certain type or certain group, either inline block or block. Yeah. With CSS, you can change the type of that element. So if U element or a strong element by default is an inline element, with CSS you can make it a block element. And block elements actually take widths and heights. So I can specify widths. Comes back here. As I said, block level elements, as this picture shows you, they are like blocking other elements to sit next to them, like they are stacking vertically. They are taking full width, full available width. Example of block level elements is div tag or div element all the heading elements from H1 to H6, like H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6, paragraph elements, HTML5 elements, including articles, sections. So all these things take 100% width. And let me show you an example of it into JS Fiddle again. So let's take a P tag and I write it here. I am the first element of type block. Yeah. I click run again. You see it's rendering into its own line. The width is ending here because it's a very small line. Yeah, I didn't type too much content in it. But if we right click on it, click inspect, our p tag is here. Yeah, you see it's going end to end. As much it try to take full space as much it can, like it forces itself. Let's use another element of same paragraph, p element basically, but maybe write something else here. Harry Potter. Oh, wait. Click run again. So you see, since p element is a block level element, they will each try to like take 100% width. That means they do not want to sit with in a row with any other element. They want to be alone. They are like lone wolves out there. Yeah. So this is your uh, block level element. Take one more example. Let's use div element. This is also a block level element. So this is our first div. We run it. This thing a little here. So you see, this is our first div. This is, trust me, this is also like 100% width. Let's cross check it. You see, the blue thing is going all the way. This blue highlight that shows like it's almost taking 584 width. And you might see the spacing, like this content is actually not edge to edge. Yeah. If I go for style, let's say, you do not need to understand what I'm doing right now. I just want to show you the presentation like what I'm doing. So I remove all kind of spacing. There are two spacings in CSS called paddings and margins. So I zero them out. I say just for every element, a stars mean this asterisk means every element. It's a wildcard basically. So remove spaces from every element, margin spaces and padding spaces. So you see that white space gone away. It's no more there. Now if I check the width, it's going from browser's edge to left to right, from left edge to right edge. It's taking 100% exactly. That is 600 pixel width right now. So these are the example of block level elements. Inline block. Uh, so inline block are the like very interesting type of class or type basically. It's a combination of inline and block as the name implies. So that means like elements can have their width or height. You can specify width and height. And if you are not specifying custom width and height for any element for inline block family, they will take the width or height of based on their wrapping content, like the content that they are wrapping. So if I'm if I have a div, yeah, or if I'm just putting an image out there, image element is coming from inline block element family. So if image is 200 by 200 pixel, like their size is 200 pixel width and 200 pixel height, it will take exactly that width and height based on the original image resolution. Yeah. If image is 500 by 500, it will take 500 pixel on the web page and 500 pixel height on the home page. So if you're not specifying the width and height, inline block elements take width and height of their content, their inner content here. And as they can sit next to each other if the space is available, if they're container, because they might be inside a div, they might be inside a p tag, they might be inside a block level element. So if their parent element have available space, they will try to fit next to each other, and if doesn't, then they might wrap to next line. So normally if you see thumb galleries and if you see the Netflix layout where thumbnails are showing in each row, or Amazon homepage, they are using those inline block elements essentially to give you that gallery kind of stuff where rows products are displaying in the rows and columns basically. So example of a, like, let's search USA flag Google images, pick something, let's use image tag or image element. Continues to struggle with it. Oh my god. And self close it. Try to render it. So you can see now I have an image displaying on my home page. If I double click on the image, click inspect, it will show exactly on the code inside browser, like where this image is rendering, which line. If I hover over it with my mouse, I can see it's taking 284 pixels, yeah, width and 177 pixel height. Maybe I already forgot which image I picked. I think this one. So the thumbnail that was showing here, this is I think 284 by 177 pixel that I end up copying here. If I type something in front of the image, this is USA flag, let's say. Since this is inline block, it doesn't forces the next element to go into new line. So this is USA flag, this content that is not wrapped into any element. This is just uh, without any element basically. Yeah, this is a normal text rendering in the normal flow, which is from top to left. That's how the browser is rendering your page. So this is rendering here. I can wrap it into some other element. Let's say strong element. Okay, if I can just let me make it a new line here. USA. So although in my source code I am writing it into a new line, it it doesn't mean it should be rendering into a new line in browser, yeah, because source code is different thing, rendering is something totally different. So although now it's wrapped into a strong element, since strong element is inline and this is inline block, they can both work together, like they can both share the same line. But if I change from strong to paragraph, which is a block level element, now what will happen? So this USA flag is actually the image tag, which is inline block element. It's full with it. Like it doesn't forces the next element to go to new line. But as soon as I put this is USA flag texture element into a paragraph element, which is a block level element, it will refuse to like sit into same line. You will see if I run it. You see it goes to the next line. Although the text is smaller, very smaller, yeah, it can place it into that available space, but it based on the block level element nature, it wants to like capture full available width. So it's shifting itself to the new line. So all these things, like what are the default behaviors, what are the default element types, like inline block and inline block, they will make more sense. And if this foundation is strong, then you can use power of CSS to change those types. And then like if something is not rendering into same line and if it's pushing under, how you how you gonna fix it? What are the workarounds for it? If it's the good behavior or it's the bad behavior, you are writing good quality code or you are writing a bad quality code. So all these things, block level, inline block, and inline, these default behaviors you need to know. Like what are their implications, like their widths and heights, forcing themselves to sit in a new line or forcing the next element to go to new line. This will help you out greatly. And I see many people struggle with it, even with the experienced devs who just jump into front end world, coming maybe from back end, or even the front end guys who just like know these things works. They have no idea why they work or why they are not working. They just like it's muscle memory for them now. They knew like somebody was doing like this, their mentor or some training course they attend, and they are just doing it. Yeah. So this was the rule or logic behind it, and this is I believe very important. Uh, One assignment that I normally share with teams that attended this kind of training or course, just to take your CV. Yeah, probably you have a CV, even if you're a fresh student, fabricate a CV, like put dummy projects in the dummy skill set that you want to acquire in 2 year life, 2 year time, and assume you already have them. So you will have a one-page CV at least. Convert that one-page CV to an HTML file, yeah, to a HTML page basically. And why this is important, I didn't teach until now CSS. We are only talking about HTML. So what I'm looking for, just one column layout. I do not get like 2 or 3 column shenanigans or stuff like that. Excuse me. So one column layout, but choose doc type carefully. Try to install some extension that validate, or just you can upload your HTML file to some validation websites like W3C validator. Yeah, just Google it, you will find it. You can install their extension or upload your file, and it will tell you like if you based on your doc type you select it, probably doc type, HTML5 version. It will tell you like if you write valid HTML, like all your elements are nested properly or not. So that's the first assignment. And what you should do, as I mentioned, do not wrap everything into a p element or div element. Choose your elements carefully, just like you are designing in Microsoft Word. When you are designing in Microsoft Word, as I said earlier, for your name, you are selecting it and you are clicking on the biggest heading available. Then for your project listing or for your skill set listing, you are using either the bullet list or the number list. So for each of those sections, try to find appropriate elements and wrap that content inside that element, and then validate your output or validate your HTML. So I think in next time we will talk about styles, because I do not want to like take too much of your time, and maybe it's hard for you to absorb all these things. Plus, I need a little bit of feedback so I can improve the next iteration of it. So we stop here, and I will see you next time. Okay. If you have any questions, let me know. Feel free to reach out. See ya next time. Bye bye.